Oh, hello, and welcome to Social Psychology. My name is Drew Mikita. I am a professor of psychology on the Breckenridge campus of Colorado Mountain College. I'm recording this video to kind of give you all a little bit of an intro, hopefully get you slightly excited about the field of social psychology, which you are all taking this semester. It's one of my absolute favorite classes to teach. One of those subjects that is really practical, super applicable to our lives, that I think literally every person has witnessed or watched something related to the field of social psychology and never knew kind of what that meant or what that exactly was. So buckle up. It's a wild class that's going to hopefully encourage you to look at people and yourself and the world and interactions between folks in a different light. Highly meaningful and useful for people of all walks. So basically an overview on this class. Social psychology in one sentence would be how human beings impact one another. And that can come from a lot of different ways. There's interpersonal communication where you're talking with people, group dynamics. There's all kinds of ways that we look at social psychology, and we're always influenced by people. That could be deep, significant influence, like your relationship with your partner or your mom or your dad, your sisters, your best friends, those significant, meaningful relationships. Or it could be the brief encounter that you have with somebody that's really unpleasant at the grocery store. So how we impact each other. And the second part of this class is really how people think, act, feel, and behave in social settings. Think, act, feel, and behave. Often people think about our experiences leading to our feelings, and then our feelings leading to our experiences. That's a big part of this class that we'll be kind of looking at is how those all play together. Our thoughts about people, our views, our ideas, our social constructs, our mental schemas, which is just basically the way that we view something, and how they impact our interactions and our influence on other people. This class really is a combination of several different fields. Obviously, it's called social psychology, so psychology, the study of the mind and human behavior, is one definition of that. You'll also see sociology being a big part of this, the study of societies and groups, how they behave, what they look like, values, norms, all sorts of things. And then there's also things like economics, how money impacts us, and if people don't think or understand the way that money influences people, probably have a lot of it and don't realize how significant your socioeconomic status, your financial situation, how much that impacts people. So other fields, history, looking back at past events, things like wars, and even studying things like past societies and looking at that like from an anthropological standpoint. It's also important to look at legal studies and political science and how political groups impact people, being in democracies, socialist settings, communistic settings, like whatever that might be, that's going to have an influence and an impact on us. And that's really what social psychology is all about, is the impact and the influence that people have on one another. And I know I'm repeating myself, but repetition is the key to learning, so I'll probably say that a few more times. The cool thing about this class and all of these different content areas and these subsections and things is that you can see almost all of them acted out. You can see the way that they influence people and what that looks like in an array of settings. And we'll kind of dive into what some of those settings are today. But it's fun to learn about this class and then take the things that we talk about and we learn and apply them to all areas of your life. And I remember being at a music festival. I think it was the first music festival I really went to, and I follow some very hippie-ish bands where they have a lot of unique fans that follow them, and it's people from an array of different backgrounds with lots of different values, but in my experiences, it's been really loving and warm environments. But there's an area that sets up at a lot of these festivals that people call Shakedown Street. And it's basically where kind of all the people like gather and people set up and they're selling food and all kinds of trinkets and memorabilia and all kinds of things that are going on there. And the first time that I walked onto Shakedown Street, it was like going to a different universe for me. The reason I say that is because I wasn't accustomed to seeing like drugs being sold out in the open and kind of people doing whatever it was that they wanted. But it was interesting to see how high functioning this Shakedown Street, this little micro society that kind of bubbles up at festivals, and seeing how kind everybody was to one another, how gentle there wasn't people stealing things, there wasn't fights breaking out, even though you have kind of some of this we'll say nefarious or illegal sorts of behaviors going on. There were also rules within that little subculture about how you treated one another, and it was free from a lot of judgment, and it was not filled with like hatred. It was filled with love, but you also had kind of these social norms and these social rules that were going on there. And it was interesting to watch the group norms. That's a term that will come up a lot throughout this class, as far as what are behaviors that are acceptable and appropriate within your group setting, whatever that is. That could be within your classroom, within your family, within your town, within your state, within your country, and going bigger and bigger and bigger. What are the social norms and why do those exist, and what does that look like? So like I said, at these music festivals, it was this fun little social psychology observation that I got to be doing, and being a part of these microcosmic cultures that pop up, and really just thinking critically and observing and watching. That's what great social psychologists do, is they observe and they watch human behavior, and they see the way that people are having an impact on each other. If you're around a lot of people who are doing really kind things and you see somebody in need and there's a bunch of people helping, you're more likely to probably go help out. If you're around people doing not great things, lying, abusing, stealing, cheating, hurting other people, whatever that is, you're more likely to fall into that in a lot of examples. So kind of that influence of seeing other people doing certain behaviors can often rub off on us for better and for worse. So I use a lighthearted, kind of silly, fun example to talk about where we see this class. But also, we see this class in really, really intense, overwhelming, serious, and life-altering sorts of ways. Thinking about political culture. Politics, at the heart of it, is social psychology. Convincing people to believe what their message is, what somebody is going to do for their town or their county or their state or their country or whatever that might be. That's social psychology. If you're trying to get people to vote for you based on fear and intimidation and lies and manipulation, that's impact. Those are some of the most impactful things that we can have, is living our lives based out of fear. Or if somebody's trying to promote positive vibes and love, and this is what I can do, and this is how we need to treat one another, and this is what that has to look like, we see it in those examples as well. Politics is a huge topic of social psychology. We also see like hate crimes and riots and groups of people, protesting. Protesting is social psychology, trying to have an influence on a government or a group of people or policymakers or whatever that might be. But hate crimes, and you'll see that sort of thing where somebody believes a group of people is entirely evil or entirely this or that, and it leading to really dysfunctional and awful relationships and horrific crimes that could be committed by people. So you'll see it in that. You also look back at history, and you look at wartime and the way that wars have been fought. A lot of that is groups of people butting heads, not seeing each other, and the influence they're trying to have is often domination over somebody, intimidation, trying to get them to adhere to some sort of belief. And those are really tragic and awful ways of looking at interaction between people. And you think about like Nazis and these awful times throughout human existence where people have taken out their angers, their frustrations, their beliefs on other people. And that is so tragic and dark and scary. But yet also when we're going to be looking at this class, we're going to be looking at the weird encounter that you had with somebody that you can't quite put a finger on why it was so odd the way that a person was behaving. I think of this class as an investigation into human interaction, regardless of how brief, significant, or intense that encounter might be. So if there's two people involved in it, social psychology is there. If it's a worldwide pandemic, social psychology, how groups of people responded and what that looked like. So there's a lot to it. This class exists on that micro level, like I said, within two people, all the way up to billions of human beings that we're sharing this planet with. So with that being said, it's always interesting to look kind of at an overview of some of these topics that we'll be having in this class. And the way that I like to look at them, and your instructors, we're all friends and we work together on this and we talk about how we want to build this class and what it is. One of the big things in this class is persuasion. Persuading something to do something. And that can be through charming them, kindness, positive, actual, authentic, real, genuine interaction where you're getting to know somebody and trying to help facilitate what it is they might actually need. Or it can also be, persuasion can be manipulation and intimidation and forcing people to believe what you want them to believe and selling them on things. You'll see that. Politics, again, comes into persuasion. Something that we like to look at in this class that I've always enjoyed looking at are things like conspiracy theories and who we believe and why. Why do we not believe some people? Why is it that we believe other people? We often make snap judgments about people. You're making a snap judgment potentially about certain aspects of me right now because you're looking at me and you're seeing me wear a ratty hoodie and a hat and I haven't shaved. I probably smell bad and you're making assessments. Wow, that guy might be a dirtbag. Well, first of all, you are absolutely right about that. But second, we do this where we form judgments and assessments about people. And when we do that, that's reading people at its best. If we're reading somebody, that's a healthy way to kind of look at them and maybe try to understand them. If we take this too far and we look at somebody and we make assessments and judgments about who they are, and that's also how we form stereotypes, discrimination, prejudice, all of these horrific isms that can come out of that. And all of that credibility of how we feel about a person impacts our ability to believe them. And that's something that we look at in persuasion when we look at conspiracies and folklore and myth and storytelling. How and why do we believe somebody and what goes into that? Do we look at them and immediately make a snap judgment? I don't like that guy. I don't like her. She's not cool. Oh, she's wearing those type of shoes. I can't stand that. Oh, they're a fan of this team. Oh, this or that. And where does that judgment of other people go from reading into negative assessment or negative assumption that can really harm somebody? So other topics that we look at, the social self, how we view ourselves in social settings. I'm also a licensed professional counselor, and I work with people in a mental health capacity, trying to help them understand themselves, having social anxiety, not wanting to be around people, not liking people. I can't do this, I can do this. Confidence, narcissism, arrogance, all the way down to lack of self-worth. That's a big part of social self, how we view ourselves in that role of a social context. We'll also, like I said, be looking at prejudice, discrimination, racism, sexism. There's an array of isms and why people form these opinions and these views on other folks and how dangerous that can be to make these snap judgments about an entire existence of a person. That's not a great thing to be doing. We'll be looking at how we all kind of hold some of these biases in our lives. The other areas that we'll be looking at, conformity. This is a huge one. And we say the word conformity, and I think a lot of us, myself included, often form some really negative views of what conformity is. And that's basically going along with a group of people. Now, that sounds like, going along with the crowd, that can be really dangerous. Yes, it absolutely can be dangerous if we're conforming to things that are not great. If we're conforming to hate groups or organizations that don't do really positive things and we're adhering to negative behavior in the sense that, so-and-so's doing it. Everybody's doing it, so can I. That can be really dangerous and is how a lot of negative and illegal and hate-filled activities occur. Conformity can also be really important. There's social norms that we have. not punching a random person in the face for no reason. That's good that we all conform to not doing that. And some positive pro-social norms are really, really important to conform to and to adhere to. And even things that are little like this. Let's say that everybody is walking down the right side of a staircase and everybody is walking up the opposite side of that staircase. Conforming to that norm of walking with the group so that there's not this person who's potentially going to trip and take out a bunch of people. That can be really important too, to follow these little social norms and these social cues that people have. That's really important to follow some of that, but also recognize, when am I conforming to something that might not be really positive and might not be super beneficial? In this class, we look at cults, and that's a project that everybody in our social psych classes will be doing, is looking at the role of individuals within a cult and group behavior that can be really dangerous, and what that kind of dynamic is. So conforming to group norms and sacrificing and de-individuating, meaning giving up your own identity to somebody else who might have more power or authority over you. And with that being said, group behavior as a whole is something that we'll look at. Groups can be the most amazing thing, where somebody comes together for a community member and builds them a house, or helps somebody overcome really horrific situations, helping people, strangers helping one another, and looking out for each other as a group and doing great stuff. It's awesome, it's amazing, it's powerful, it's significant. Groups are also one of the most dangerous things that we have as a human existence. Groups coming together and, again, giving up their identity, not looking out and thinking for themselves, and falling into some group norms and some group behaviors that are really dangerous and threatening to other people. So we'll look deeply into group behavior and kind of understand what that looks like. There's a few famous research studies out there that we'll be looking at and understanding kind of the role that they've played. And just so you know, we'll dive into these deeper, but the Stanley Milgram shock experiment, what people are willing to do in horrific, it's actually a very controlled environmental, academic research sort of setting, but trying to apply how these behaviors of people within those settings can be applied to bigger real life things, and what that is. So the Stanley Milgram shock experiment is something we'll dive into, how people are willing to shock people just because somebody encouraged them. Nobody's actually getting shocked, spoiler alert. But we'll also look at the Stanford prison experiment, what people are willing to do if they're assigned a random role like a prisoner or a guard, and how far they're willing to take these roles that they're assigned. And we'll look at that, and we'll apply that out to like how police forces can be so abusive and so aggressive with people because they have a badge and we've given them that power and we've allowed them to have maybe too much power at points. We'll also look at famous things that have happened, like the Kitty Genovese murder, where hundreds of people literally stood by without doing anything when they were hearing the screams of a person being kind of tortured and murdered. We'll look at how in groups of people, when we feel like somebody else can act, why we don't always act. That's called the diffusion of responsibility, the bystander effect. So we'll kind of dive into that. But the big thing that I want you to take from this intro video, and hopefully some of these topics are sounding exciting to you, and they're sounding like something, oh wow, this is going to be a cool class. It is a really cool class. But this is everywhere. Face-to-face encounters, deep relationships, politics, like I've said several times, all these group sorts of behaviors. But then I look at something that's really modern, in the last 20 years, the advent of social media. Social media is basically a documented social psychology experiment of how people portray themselves to others and what are they trying to persuade you into. People begin to conform to what people are saying and follow along with some of this. So we'll be looking at social psychology in multiple ways, and it's really a fun class. I think you can learn a lot about yourself and other people from this class, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as we all do teaching this. And I think the big question that I have for today from a research standpoint is, what about this class, and what about the readings that you've done from this first week, from this video that I've shared, from any of your knowledge that you have about social psychology, what about this interests you as an individual, and what about this as a class are you excited to learn about? If there's anything, what topics or what ideas in this class do you see being relevant to you? I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great semester, and welcome to social psychology. Bye.